Hello, and welcome back to another exciting instalment of the Grant Thornton Podcast. We're here for a very special episode today on automation. My guest is Andrew McBean. Andrew has an outstanding career. He's worked at Microsoft for nearly 10 years, including its Managing Director of Thailand. He was Senior Vice President of both Business and Strategy Divisions at DTAC, and he led the world's largest robotic process automation company here in Thailand. Andrew is a partner at Grant Thornton in our business consulting area. Andrew, good to see you. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much.
To start off, can you tell us a little bit more about what you're actually doing in our business consulting area?
I will tell you that. So if you think about business processes and strategy and everything now, we're really at a critical inflection point when it comes to digital. So if you think about all the processes, they're fused together with digital now and strategy. So in that respect, I'm sort of the digital infuser. So my role is to bring in automation approaches, analytic approaches, digitalization, and how we can help our clients to effectively digitize their business processes.
So we need to change your title to the digital infuser. That's a great term.
Yeah,
I like that. Yes. Businesses in Thailand are facing significant challenges at the moment.
Yeah.
There's an aging workforce which is leading to aging population, which is leading to a shrinking workforce, particularly a shrinking skilled workforce.
Yes.
We've got pretty significant inflation similar to the rest of the world. And this means that how we see it is that businesses need to do more with a lot less. How does automation assist them in that regard?
You know, it's almost sounds, it's so obvious in a way, it sounds almost disingenuous because automation can, of course, helps with all of those things. If you think about, if you parse those things out, so we have an aging population. So we need to, one robot can do the job, typically they're 20 times faster than a human. So they're not going on leave, they don't get sick, they work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Only 20?
Yes, so I feel that's at the lower end of the scale, to be honest. I suppose it a little bit depends on the number of processes you have, which are kind of high volume, low complexity. But they're very, very fast at what they do. So therefore, you can do the work of one person. You can do the work of many people with one robot. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, so we all have a finite amount of resources. So why would we want to pay quite a high percentage of those people to do menial, repetitive work, when in fact we need their rare skills to be doing things which add value to the business? So finding new products, new ways to market, new distribution channels, going and meeting clients. I mean, there's just nothing better than going out and meeting clients. But we're spending all of this time in the office. How much of our workforce stays in the office doing tasks which could, in fact, be automated? So that's another area as well that automation can contribute to.
Digital transformation has been talked about, and it's been a major priority for businesses for many years. But looking at recent statistics, I was intrigued to note that in the last 20 years, with all this new technology that's come in,
Yes.
productivity has, if anything, gone backwards.
Yep. Yes.
So how do businesses using automation ensure that they're actually going to be more productive and not fall into that trap of spending money on technology, but actually productivity is going backwards?
Yeah. So two answers to that. The first is, and again, this is where automation is quite unusual, quite special, because any size of organization, especially an organization which has been around for a while, because typically as an organization grows, they add more and more processes, they add more and more technology, they might buy companies. So as the company grows, a process stops. When it was first originated, the process is a strategic lever for the company. So that's why brand new companies are so successful, because their processes are already a strategic lever. But the further you go on, the longer it takes. That moves down and down and down to just becoming something which is highly reactive and becomes not fit for purpose, really, in a way. But now what's happened to us is we've got just so many of these technology systems now in place. I was talking to, I would say, a mid-sized company, about 1,500 employees the other day, and I was saying, how many systems do you have? And they said, well, we have 160. and they're trying to whittle it down to 80 if they can. And they've been very successful. So they've bought other companies, but they're trying to go from 160 to 80 systems. Just think about the way we communicate today. It's Outlook, it's Line, it's WhatsApp, it's Slack, Teams. Those are just 5. And that could, typically you could have a communication in just all 5 of those in one day, or 1 hour, or 1 minute. So we've hit a point where we're actually all this technology is now actually slowing us down. So automation is another kind of clever thing because it can actually zoom along the top of these systems, and it can actually reach in and grab information, put that information together, present it maybe to a call center agent. They can put some information in, and it pops back into the systems. So another thing that automation is very clever at, very good at, is in this situation we're in today, where we actually have too many systems, which is what is actually slowing us down. The other thing I would say is that if you look at a process and a business, you imagine it to be sort of a dense ball of processes. That's effectively what it is. And the older that business is, the more dense that ball becomes. And I think what people have done, they've looked at digital transformation. Again, I met a client last Friday, and they said, oh yeah, we brought in somebody to head up digital transformation, but it was a total failure. Because they're really thinking, okay, how do we take this ball and do the ball digitally? But actually that's not really the right approach. What we have to do is we have to go into that ball and we have to pull out what I call golden strands, which are really customer journeys. Actually, those are the most value-added ones, where you can pull out, and some of those are going to be multiple processes, multiple departments, multiple systems. But you pull out, so the ball, you can't go from this ball this size to a ball of nothing. You can't do that. You have to do it over a long period of time, pull out the golden strands, and find a way of digitizing those. And typically, there will be many different types of digital interventions, even in one process. Some bits of the process might require automation, some might require improvement, some might require analytics, because that customer journey it can be quite a long and involved process. But that's where you're going to get the high value back, and that's what we're trying to go after, is those golden threads of processes.
Yeah, I mean, so looking at those processes, how important is it for businesses to actually understand their processes before they try to automate them?
So yeah, you absolutely have to. You have to do that, and so I have another one of my little favorite sayings is being in the tornado. I mean, when you're a business leader, when you're in the business, you are just in the tornado the whole time. And all you could see flying past you is a cow, dust, a house. You just don't have
Wicked
time.
Witch.
The Wicked Witch, it could be. I mean, you probably in your nightmares you're seeing the Wicked Witch fly past. So again, and I'm sorry, this is a true story. I was with a CEO the other day, and they said, we don't know where to start. We know we have all these processes that we need to fix, but we don't know where to start. And even if we did know where to start, we don't know what treatment to give it. You remember the golden thread. What do we do with the golden thread? Yes. Because there are many different things that you could do with the golden thread, actually. But what is the optimal thing? So this is a huge challenge for businesses, that they find it very hard to start because they cannot see the processes for themselves. Also, do you remember, as I mentioned, we've moved from strategic lever down to a very reactive process, which is not fit for purpose. When it gets down here, it's totally fused together with a person. Up here, it wasn't like that. It was a process, and it was digitized, and it was all nice and gleamy and shiny. Down here, it's now fused with a person. So what happens down here is when you try to tackle a process, it looks like you're tackling the person, not the process. And so you get a lot of resistance when the process is already down here, because these are too fused. They're calcified, effectively. So we really want to try to intervene in these processes before they get down here. But if they are down here, people will need help identifying what these are. Just to start. I mean, this is actually just to start. Not to say that they need them for all of those things in the bowl, but they need help to pull out. Because once you start to see success, and you'll get very stimulated by that. People will go, wow, okay, that was successful. I can see now that if I spend $1, I get $10 back. But what very often happens is people choose the wrong thing to start with, and they spend $10 and get $1 back, and then they think, well, really, that wasn't worth it. I'm really put off by this process. So choosing the right proof of concept, that golden thread, and having then a pipeline of these threads so that we keep going is very important.
We hear a lot of examples of where organisations have been very successful implementing RPA, but most of the ones we hear about are the very largest organisations or the massive shared service centres. Yeah. Is there a block for the smaller companies? Is it too expensive to go down that automation route?
So I think this is a great question. I mean, automation in its sort of, as we know it today, it's relatively new actually. And of course now we see that automation is, you can extend automation with machine learning and artificial intelligence. So it's really quite sort of de jour now. It's perhaps more of a buzzword. But so that means that you now have lots more automation choices than you used to have. There are, for example, Power Automate is within the Office suite, and that's going to be very good for personal automation. There are a number of companies using open source now and Python programming for automation, so there's no license cost involved in that. There's a service cost perhaps. I met a bank the other day that have 300 of these processes using open source automation, so that's no cost to the license whatsoever. I would also say that a business which is growing very fast will want to really put in automation early on, because what they don't want when they're growing fast is to have to scale the back office at the same pace as they're growing the front office. So these things have become a lot more accessible to people. I also think, again, going back to that proof of concept, again, if you don't mind spending $1 if you're getting $10 back, but that's been a failure point, and I would say a very significant failure point. Normally when people do a proof of concept, they say, well, let's choose something really easy because we're going to learn. And then when they look back at the pain that they went through and the result that they got, they think, that really wasn't worth it. I don't want to do that again. And the management lose any energy they have for continuing this process. So that choosing that proof of concept, because actually these automation products, even the ones that are subscription-based, the UiPath, the Automation Anywhere, Blue Prism, these are not expensive if you have orientated them to the right projects, the right proof of concepts.
So we're all business leaders, a lot of us business owners, and obviously we're incredibly tight and incredibly careful when it comes to spending a buck, right? Mm-hmm. So, and given SMEs by and large drive a lot of the economic growth, yeah. Is this out of reach of SMEs? Is it prohibitively expensive?
No, and again, from an SME's perspective, they're going to want to avoid the upfront costs typically. But also they're in a nice position. Remember that strategic lever versus not fit for purpose process, and that it takes time to move down that. So the SME starts up here. They have a position where they are in place to be able to put in the process as a strategic lever. It must have automation. You must be doing automation now as part of that, or digitalization, should I say, as part of that business process. You have to do that. So as I mentioned, there now are choices. I don't think these robot prices are particularly expensive, I have to say. So I mean, an attended robot from one of these, from UiPath, for example, is going to be at retail prices about $1,200 a year.
$1,200 a year.
$1,200. Yeah. Now you've got unattended robots, which are about $8,000. Those are unattended robots, which are just piling through processes 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Even that, I don't think is very expensive. You've got banks who have 40,000 robots. Some of the telcos have hundreds of these robots. So if you're an SME and that is a critical success factor for your business, that strategic lever, you've got one process which is really driving your business, you'd be well advised to automate, because it'll be too late when it starts moving down towards this not fit for purpose. And I mentioned yesterday we had a meeting with a client. Lots of customers, big retail company here in Thailand. But when they want to sell something more to a client, they've got a lot of information about the client. When they want to sell something more to the client, somebody manually goes through and looks at what they could sell them. This is a company that has tens of thousands, I would say hundreds of thousands of customers in Thailand. So, I mean, automation can absolutely take care of that, and so as a small business, you could be, if you armed with automation, you just have a sort of a stronger business right from the get-go.
Let's just finally talk about people, your employees, right? Because what I hear a lot is they get very nervous. Oh, you're going to bring in robots, so that's going to put me out of a job. How important well, obviously it's very important to get employee buy-in. How do you do that? How do you get your employees to say, I am going to work with you to implement RPA or AI in the organisation and not fear that basically I'm helping you to put myself out of a job?
Yeah. So two answers to that. The first thing is I read a really good quote from a Harvard professor that said, because people are frightened that machines are going to replace them. And this quote is fantastic. It says, machines will not replace people, but people with machines will replace people without machines. And if you think about, that's time immemorial that's been the case. Yeah. So first thing, that is a true statement, and it's never been truer now when we have artificial intelligence, machine learning, generative AI, never been truer than it is today. And so you have to do it. I mean, there is no business if we don't do this. If somebody is next to you who's the same size of you as a competitor, who is armed with these tools, they are going to be so much more successful than you, so much faster than you. So it has to be done. That's one thing. And employees will respond to that kind of logic in a way that we have to do this. But secondly, what I have seen over and over and over again is when employees are involved in the process, they love it. Nobody gets up in the morning and thinks, I can't wait to do exactly what I was doing yesterday. Nobody. And in fact, we've seen that, of course, over COVID, where a lot of people realized that that's what they had been doing for years and didn't want to do it anymore. Now, there is a reality to that that we now see, but the fact is that people, and I've seen, there was a great story in a previous company that I was working with, a very large telco in Singapore. There was a lady there who'd been doing the same process for 40 years. 40 years. You would think she would be the very last person who would want to embrace automation. She couldn't wait to get her hands on this thing, and she did her own programming to make her job automated, and she was the happiest person. They actually called this thing a BevBot. So a lot of these companies actually give the robots names. I think it's Coca-Cola who has like the Fanta bot and the Coke bot, but also they also put them on the org chart. They have job descriptions. They could be fired as well if they don't. So you must make this a transparent process. You must involve the employees, and their jobs are going to be more interesting.
Like people give names to their GPS in their car, Susie or something. Yeah, I think. Well, I have heard some people do that.
Right, Ian.
Well, not me. Just hearing you talk, Andrew, it sort of reminds you of a lot of what you read about the Industrial Revolution, where everyone got concerned about the machinery, and that was going to put everyone out of jobs. And we went through one of the greatest increases in productivity the world had seen, and greatest increase in employment. Yeah. So I think that probably resonates very well. Yeah. Andrew, you're obviously very enthusiastic about this.
Yes, I really
about this time. Parting words for business leaders.
Wow, that's a great question. So it has to be done. I think, hopefully even in this last 10 minutes, this last 15 minutes, I think particularly Thailand, you mentioned before with the aging society. I know that people think this is sort of some way off. It's really not that far off. And there are quite serious implications as well to the aging society, not just the fact that we're taking 311,000 people out of the workforce. I'm in front of business leaders and they all say to me they can't find people. And they say it in a way that I think they think that's going to get better somehow. That next year everything's going to be better. That I don't know what people think is going to happen. It's not going to help. It's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. So automation is a must do, and I would say digitalization is a must do, and that it's actually not. It's not really rocket science. Actually, there's a lot of things that we now know how to make these projects very, very successful. So don't be kind of concerned about getting some advice about this, some practical advice. And sort of pull out these golden threads and get working.
Andrew, thank you for your time today. Obviously very enthusiastic about it, so thank you. Thank you. So there you have it. Business leaders, don't be like the farmer that when they brought in the automobile said, I'm not using this newfangled machinery. If you were to, you'll be left behind. Come and see us at Grant Thornton, and particularly Andrew. You can see how enthusiastic he is to help you, a digital infuser indeed. He's so enthusiastic to help you bring what is basically something essential to your business, which is automation. Thank you for your time.